Richard Ramirez is a known psychopath. What kind of body language and behavior should you look out for to know that you're dealing with a psychopath? Find out next. Welcome back to the More Channel Shakers. Derek Van Shake here. This is a moron video about the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. My main channel video, what we did is we looked at Richard Ramirez's psychopathic body language, breaking down attributes of a psychopath so you can identify a psychopath in your life. My main channel video, we only looked at one interview of Richard Ramirez. However, he did some other interviews, and that's what we're going to break down here in this moron video. So now, let's get started.
They didn't particularly care for people.
The first thing he says is that he didn't particularly care for people. And it's actually even debated whether psychopaths even care for themselves. As a lot of people know, psychopaths lack empathy. So in other words, they just can't understand how you feel. It's not that psychopaths have no feelings at all. I think some psychopaths want you to think they have no feelings at all and that they're just hard hitters and who cares with feelings and I'm above feelings and things like that. But deep down, they do have feelings, but they just are unable to relate to your feelings. But typically, part of the manipulation that psychopaths play on you is making you believe that they do care about you, that maybe they do have empathy, that they are looking out for your best interests. They know that they can't get away with what they want to get away with if everyone knows that they're only out for themselves and they don't give a crap about you and they can't understand or empathize with anything you're saying. They'll never get all their desires met, whether that's to find a romance partner or a business partner or a customer or a client, because otherwise they'll be blacklisted and avoided and no one would want to work with them or talk to them or be in a relationship with them. He's only able to be open like that because there's a lot of psychopaths in prison, and also being so hardcore psychopath like that probably will get him some extra cred in prison. But in the free world, yeah, people are going to avoid you like the plague if they know that you're a psychopath and you're just trying to take advantage of everybody. Let's continue.
Serial killer comes about by circumstances and like a recipe: poverty, drugs, child abuse. These things, contribute to a person, to a person's frustration and anger, and at some point in life, he explodes.
What Richard is trying to do here is deflect blame. Maybe something happened where he did it, but come on, it's not all his fault. But if you think about it, there's a lot of people that have come from very terrible circumstances and that don't turn out to be serial killers. So there's a big gap here. It's not just, oh, well, Richard had a very tough life. Richard was, all these things happened to Richard, and poor Richard, poor Richard. So the only course of action that could have possibly come of that is being a serial killer. No, that's not how these things work. A lot of people come from a lot of terrible circumstances, and they don't turn out to be serial killers. But he seems to be here just trying to pass the blame. Oh, well, it's because of my circumstances. It wasn't my fault. It was these circumstances. Look at all my circumstances. I had a terrible childhood. What do you expect? Look at Ted Bundy. Supposedly had a good childhood, and he turned out to be a serial killer. Richard, as a psychopath, he's trying to manipulate you into believing that he's not responsible for what he did. If you notice, he talked about what he believed contributed to him being a serial killer, but did not talk about any other reasons beyond what was out of his control of the reasons why he became a serial killer. He's doing that to try to manipulate you and convince you that it's not his fault. He's all these outside external circumstances that resulted in this. So if you need to blame anybody, you have to blame the system that resulted in him. It's not his fault, he wants you to believe. He never talked about what was in his control and the decisions he made that resulted in all these crimes. Now watch this part here and see what you think. It's quite creepy.
Why on earth would you have hurt those people? Why did you kill those people?
No comments. No comments. I cannot answer that at this time.
You know how we talk about Duping Delight on my channel? This is just called Delight. He is delightful when he's hearing about what he did. He is delightful. He's holding back a smile, level of delight that is running through this spawn of Satan's body is disgusting. He just can't hold back the smile. He's just like beside himself. He's just so gleeful. It's disgusting. The thing is, too, he was just found guilty of 13 murders. There seems to be a heck of a lot more than 13 that he's tied to. A heck of a lot more. But in the court system, they're not going to try him on a murder that they don't have enough evidence to convict him on. So what they're going to just do is just find the murders that have so much unbelievable evidence that you can so easily get a conviction out of it that it's not worth tying in a whole bunch of other murders. Whether he's convicted of 13 murders or 100 murders, the outcome's going to be the same for him. It's just so much easier to say, hey, look at all this airtight evidence on these 13 cases. Simply bring back a guilty verdict. Also, by condensing his crimes to just the ones that you can easily prove, it makes the whole trial, of course, less lengthy.
Why did you kill those people?
And he also looks outside the jail cell, probably thinking, heck, I would like to be outside the jail cell, or maybe my attorney's sitting outside and he's probably shaking his head. Don't say that. Don't act like that. I think if anyone on this planet could ever be the spawn of Satan, yeah, it's him. Even Ted Bundy, at least, tried to pretend that he did care and that he was sorry for what he did. Granted, he said all that when he was going to be executed the next day when he was on death row, hoping that he would get off of death row and getting on the good side of the governor to get him off of death row. That's the thing with psychopaths. You can pretty much always know why a psychopath is doing something because it's only for their best interest. It's not for anything other than for what they want at that very moment. So someone like Ted Bundy revealing all and trying to help everybody, of trying to spot serial killers and try to prevent this from ever happening again, you kind of know why he did that.
They are desires, whereas if I didn't give in to them, I would be crushed by them.
Even more playing victim, trying to divert away his responsibility in all this. This is very typical of a psychopath.
They are desires, whereas if I didn't give in to them, I would be crushed by them.
I think what he's referring to is his desire to commit the crimes. That if he doesn't do that, then somehow he will be crushed inside personally. Again, more diverting blame away from himself and then onto his circumstances. It was either me or them, and I didn't know what to do, and I'm just a victim of my circumstances. He talks very little about taking any responsibility for any of this. Everything seems to be something that was done to him, trying to manipulate the viewers, whether it's jurors or the judges or anybody, to think, oh, well, poor Richard. It's actually, Richard is a victim in all this. He's a victim just like all the other victims. Oh, maybe we should let him go. Obviously, that won't happen, but because of their massive ego and inflated sense of self, they believe that they can do the impossible. Something like this of like, hey, maybe if I just convince everybody that I'm a victim too. It wasn't just 13 victims, it was 14. He can get off of death row and maybe out of that smelly prison too. Completely bogus to me and you, but someone like him who has that inflated sense of self, he believes that he can do something that's just impossible. Psychopaths a lot of times will believe the impossible is very possible because of their inflated ego. Again, one or two attributes of a psychopath does not make someone a psychopath. But if you do everything a psychopath does, you start to become the definition of a psychopath. If a kid thinks he's going to be the next Michael Jordan and he's the worst player on the basketball team, okay, it doesn't make him a psychopath. Maybe he has a lot of self-confidence and thinks he can improve, but it doesn't make him a psychopath.
I believe in the evil in human nature. This is a wicked world. And in a wicked world, wicked people are born.
Our view and understanding of the world is through our own lens. We're all individuals here on this planet. So the reason why a serial killer psychopath is going to be saying that, hey, it's a wicked world and it's evil and it's terrible, well, can you guess why? Yeah, it's because they're evil, they're terrible, they're wicked. That's why. That's the soulful lens that Richard sees through. So naturally, when he talks about the world, he's going to be talking about it being so wicked. Everything is done for self-gain, and everyone's just trying to stomp each other and trying to hurt each other because he's a psychopath. He's unable to see how someone could do something just because they want to help somebody else. And it makes them feel good inside to help somebody else. Maybe as simple as holding a door for somebody or helping someone with a package or anything. Just a feeling of wanting to help somebody for the sake of trying to help somebody. And of course, you're going to feel good inside for helping somebody. But someone like Richard, who doesn't have empathy, he's not going to feel very good when he holds the door for somebody. He's going to feel like, I held the door for you. What do I get out of this? Or I'm going to help you with a package. Instead of thinking, oh, well, I helped somebody and it makes me feel good inside that I was able to help somebody. No, he's not going to feel that way. He's going to feel like, hey, what do I get out of this? I helped you with a package. Am I going to get any money for that? Am I going to maybe get a business deal with you? Or am I going to be able to get a date with you? Everything is done for the exchange of, I want something from you, and not for the sake of, hey, I did something for you and it made me feel good inside. He doesn't have that feeling.
I'm not going to blame society, my race, or people, or anything.
When someone says that they're not going to blame something for their circumstances, they're essentially blaming something for their circumstances. And that's what they also want to get in your mind. So it's a clever way of actually blaming their circumstances without specifically blaming their circumstances. It wouldn't be blaming the circumstances if he then said what he is to blame and blame himself for certain things and actually take responsibility for the things that he is responsible for. But we really don't hear any of that. Psychopaths can't help but to try to manipulate you.
It is up to the individual like myself to keep on knocking on whatever door they want to get into.
Knocking on whatever door he wants to get into? Yeah, I think that's a pretty terrible analogy given what he did.
Satan is concerned. I believe in a malevolent being. His description eludes me, but I have felt powers that are evil.
So what Richard is saying here is that he thinks he has had contact with an evil being, which he believes has given him powers. I think sometimes it's misunderstood that, all psychopaths are evil, are in prison, are these terrible people always. Yeah, they can be. They have the potential to be. Just because someone is a psychopath doesn't mean it's only a matter of time before they're sent to prison. It doesn't mean that. Believe it or not, there's a lot of psychopaths that aren't in prison. But it makes you wonder, why though? I mean, really, I think the reason is that there just hasn't been a good enough reason for them to commit a crime to send them to prison. Or they just haven't been caught. Are they ticking time bombs where it's just a matter of time before they are sent to prison? No, it's not 100% that they're going to be sent to prison. A lot of psychopaths, they live their entire lives and never go to prison. It's just that they haven't been caught yet, or they haven't found a good enough reason to do something that they are capable of doing that could send them to prison. If you're not a psychopath and you don't want to be taken advantage of, stay away from psychopaths. Common jobs for psychopaths are corporate executives, salespeople, cops. How many bad salesmen have you met that just want to take advantage of you and are going to lie to you and don't care, right? With corporate executives, think of Enron and Bernie Madoff. They didn't care if they were scamming people or taking someone else's money. They didn't care. And then with cops, it's really sad. And I feel like you have a few bad apples that really ruin the bunch. And that's really, really sad because there's a lot of cops that go into policing because they want to help people, not because they want to feed into their ego by having the power to hold a gun on their hip.
I don't care about myself, really. I don't care about what happens to me. I never did, really.
And I wouldn't take that completely, that he absolutely doesn't care at all that he's in prison. I think he would much rather be committing the crimes on the street like he was before than being in prison, of course. But what Richard is talking about is very typical of someone who has antisocial personality disorder. For them, they just look at life as a game, and when life is over, it's sort of like game over. Now, watch this part here and see what you think.
I think most humans have in them the capacity to commit murder. It is not because...
No, we don't, Richard.
They choose not to, not because they are morally superior, as they so commonly claim, but because they are imprisoned in a web of responsibilities, commitments, beliefs, and sentiments.
Richard.
And that would render murder an absurd gamble or ridiculous self-destruction.
His rationale of why people don't commit murder is actually very psychopathic because he's saying it from his psychopathy lens of a lack of empathy. Richard is talking about murder exactly the way a psychopath would talk about murder, which is all self-focused of, if I commit the crime, then I'll have to do the time. I'll be in prison for so long. Then even if I get out of prison, then who would want to hire me? Instead, what are the reasons that you wouldn't want to commit the crime? Well, because I wouldn't want to hurt somebody like that. Oh my gosh, that's messy. That's disgusting. I'll not only be hurting the victim, but I would also be hurting an entire family and friends group. Many people. Why would I want to hurt so many people? And then it may be, and I also don't want to go to prison my whole life. Why would I want to hurt somebody and myself? It makes no sense. But for Richard, he doesn't think about the other person. It's not like, why would I want to hurt somebody? He's just thinking, well, you wouldn't want to commit the crime because you wouldn't want to hurt yourself. No thought of the other person.
And that would render murder an absurd gamble or ridiculous self-destruction.
Very, very textbook psychopath. Now let's read your comments. Webster Noley writes, every night Satan checks under his bed to make sure Richard isn't there before he goes to sleep. Yeah, I can't imagine anyone more Satan than this guy. Extra of Agent 64 writes, fun fact, if you're being chased by a serial killer, you're both running for your life. Yeah, you're trying to keep your life and they're trying to take your life. Is there anyone possibly worse than a serial killer on this planet? I mean, there's some really bad people, but I think a serial killer is probably, it has to be up there, especially Richard Ramirez and the way that he did everything. And it wasn't just oh yeah, I'm gone. No, it was quite disgusting. And that made Richard, I think, one of the most disgusting human beings in the history of the world. Everything about him, from how, like, you just look at him and when he talks and how he smiles about everything that he did, it just makes your skin crawl. Someone like Ted Bundy, he actually got away with it that long because he was so charming and was able to charm his way out of all of it. But someone like Richard is like the evil son of the devil. It's shocking how evil someone could actually be on this planet. And he is it. Holzer writes, why do we give murderers such cool names like Night Stalker? If we give them names like the Small Pee-Pee Killer, there wouldn't be any more murderers. Guess who we can blame for that? You guessed it, the mainstream media that tries to create these mythical names for these murderers so that people get attracted to watching the news all the time and addicted to the news. Whoa, Night Stalker. What's going on with the Night Stalker instead of the little pee-pee killer? And yeah, if you were watching the Netflix documentary, it was pretty disgusting of how the media was handling all this. They were basically blackmailing the police. You don't give me this story with you, then I'm going to release this information that's going to make it more difficult for you to catch this killer. I mean, what the heck? Your family may be next. You're not going to care for the community. You're not going to care that someone else's life is going to be at risk because you're going to run a story revealing some of the cards that the police have. Like, it was just some game that they were just playing to get more ratings over people's lives. Gina writes, the women fawning over him and calling him a nice guy makes me violent. How desperate do you have to be to lower your standards like that? If I'm on his good side, maybe he won't do it to me.
I know that he's a nice person because I've met him and I know.
He's convicted of 13 murders.
I know. But he's really a nice guy.
Richard never got out of prison. She would be one of the first people that he would do it to. Oh, well, so much for liking him, and he's such a nice guy. Yeah, he would do it right to you in a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat, in a heartbeat, in a heartbeat, in a heartbeat, in a heartbeat.
Brandy TX writes, I'm proud of the people who put themselves in harm's way in order to help the public, such as those who chased down a fugitive running from the law. Those people are true heroes, and I only hope the best for all of them. Yeah, I know what you mean, and that's why I included some of that in the video. It really made me feel very proud that they would go and, put themselves in harm's way, even just a chance to rip this guy to shreds. And, surely this serial killer has no problem in hurting anybody. So the fact that those people were like, hey, this guy needs to be stopped, and I don't care what happens to me, but, we got to make sure that this guy gets stopped.
Spotted and chased, Ramirez jumped a wall into the backyard of the Pinon family.
He said, I'm not taking this car. You ain't taking nothing, boy.
Now that we're looking back, like so many years later, are now old or some are dead, and it makes you think, I hope they had good lives. Now in the comments, what do you do to avoid psychopaths? Let everyone know in the comments below. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button now because you don't miss out on more on videos from body language and investigative videos on my main channel. I'll see you at the top.